This is Strategists episode 1014. My name is Zane Belcher. With me, as always, Stephen Carter, Corey Hogan. Guys, it is late at night, but we've got so much to talk about. Do we not, Carter?
We do. We have so much to talk about. I got another massage. It was fantastic. So way better than the last one I talked about with Corey and I. This one was amazing.
Wait a minute.
No, don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about the grammar. I actually fully appreciate.
I felt a full release. She started right up at my head, and she was playing with my head until I just it was almost like an explosion, and I felt like I was just so relaxed at that moment. It was amazing.
What are you doing, man? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? We're a family program.
Is this a new bit that you're looking to do?
Yeah, it's a family program.
You guys would
do
people
to lean into Carter the pervert.
People listen to this hooked up to their aux cable and their Corollas. Okay.
That's how
with their kids.
That's how you don't listen.
With their kids inside and on top of the car. Okay, this is a family program. Okay?
I don't even know what you guys are talking about. I had a massage. The last one was hell. So I want to let you know this one was good.
I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to hit the intro music again. We're going to leave that on the record just so your shame can live forever. But we're going to give you another shot at the start of this one. Here.
Okay.
Good. Ready?
This is a Strategist episode 1014. My name is Zane Belcher. With me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. Corey, how's it going? So nice to see you and you alone.
So I got this massage today. And the release was incredible. Just started with the head.
Yeah.
What are you doing? This is a family program. People listen to this in their Hyundai accent on an aux cable with their kids inside and on top of the car. What are you doing?
Another go? Can we just give this another shot?
You know what? Let's give it one more shot. I think we got
You ruined it again. Okay, here we go.
One more time.
This is a Strategist episode 1014. My name is Zane Belcher. With me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. Guys, what is going on? How's it going, Corey?
Well, you were telling us just before the show about this massage you got.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the massage you got. Yeah, Zane, did she start with your hair? Is that what you were saying earlier?
I'm gonna fucking explode. What? What's so funny about this?
It's still better than Twitter Blue.
Yeah. Let's move it on to our first segment. Our first segment, red splash, blue check. Corey, what do we want to talk about? Which color do we want to talk about in the United States? Do we want to talk about the red that didn't happen? Do you want to talk about the blue that's happening everywhere? What do you want to do? Let's talk about Twitter. And in fact, let's make this a sub segment called corporate advice. Corey, we did some corporate advice last episode.
We did. So excited.
I'm going to actually go back to this corporate advice but let's start with where we gave corporate advice to last time. Let's start with Twitter again, because, Corey, a lot of things have changed at Twitter. Elon Musk has introduced the new $8 blue verified check. He introduced the official badge. He took away the official badge. Now everyone can be, according to an incredible meme, BBC News Alert, because you just pay $8 and you just get to do whatever the fuck you want. It has led to Twitter being, and I say this without exaggeration, fucking incredible. I have never seen Twitter be
as this good. It's never been this good.
It's never been this bad, but it's never been this good.
Yeah.
It is actually now doubling down on all the problems that it's had. But let's also talk about the fact that the chiefs of information security and privacy and compliance have quit. Elon Musk has now asked all employees to come back to the office. In an email later in the day, he's told all individuals who don't show up to the office that your resignation is tendered and accepted. He's also that the company might be on the brink of bankruptcy. Corey, I'm missing a shitload in between. Yeah. Like I can't keep up.
This
is like
to keep up.
Trump, Danielle Smith levels of activity that he's putting out there. What's the corporate advice today for Elon Musk? Last time, can I paraphrase yours just so I can remember it? Was it was something about direction and action, right? To not equate those two things. What would it be now for this guy? Alongside that, I imagine still.
Fucking still that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the official badge and the retraction of the official badge yesterday. Within the last 2 hours, they've reintroduced the badge.
Oh, it's back.
After Elon Musk saying, I killed it, it was a bad idea. It's less than like 24 hours later, this thing is back. At least for now. We'll see if it's back when Elon Musk wakes up in the morning. It's impossible to say. Executives have been left, right, and center. They had something like 6 other high-profile resignations today, including their chief information security officer. Their lawyers are telling them they're no longer in PC, obligation that they have to effectively always run their upgrades through these security reviews. And the whole thing is, it reminds. So when I was in the 12th grade, a friend, we'll call him Dave B. We'll keep his last name anonymous here.
Yeah.
He had a house party for the Super Bowl. It was fucking awesome. It was the best and worst party I was ever going to go to in high school. It was so much fun. And this rather affluent house that his parents had did not do so well over the course of the night. And at a certain point, despite his parents being out of town, clearly one of the neighbors had said, "You better get back here." And the parents showed up. And it was like one of those things that we couldn't stop talking about. Even as we lived it, we knew it was a bad thing that was happening. But it was just so much fun. What do you do? Like, you just can't walk away. And this is the house party that I had in the 12th grade, but with absolutely everybody online. We can see Twitter dying in front of our eyes, but I'll be fucked if we're not going to have fun while it's going on, right? Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy what's going on here.
We should take a moment and explain to Zane what a party is. Party is when you bring over your friends. You have more than one or two of them. Okay. They fill up the house. There's drinking and dancing and
Carter read about one in a book once.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I also did not get to attend any high school parties. I feel bad about it, okay?
Yeah, no, this is coming out of clearly a sense of deep bitterness. Carter, what's the corporate advice you're giving Twitter today? I mean, Corey's was slow down. But at
also, it's get out, right? Must find a way to declare victory and get out. You're not good at this.
Well, what do you mean get out? Like, well, actually, so let me stick with you, Corey. What do you mean get out? Like, is he done with Twitter? You think it's the writings on the wall? He can't fucking do this job?
Well, he's got to find someone else to run it. He's way too in the hole at this point. He's got to just hope that in the next 10 years somebody can claw him back to this investment not being the worst thing in the world. Because right now it seems inconceivable how quickly he's destroying this company, but he is. Right?
Corey, could this end up being, without exaggeration, one of the worst business investments ever, period?
Yeah. Without exaggeration, yeah. He might have lit $44 billion on fire. You know what I was thinking today? I was thinking, how long would it take you to physically burn $44 billion of cash? So I Googled a picture of like what $1 billion looked like, tried to multiply that by 44 in my mind. You got to assume that you got to kind of like expand it, compress it. You know what? 2 weeks. 2 weeks might actually be kind of tough unless you were really dedicated to the cause. If it's just one person trying to burn money. He's found a way. He's found a way. The other thing I want to throw on the table here, Zane, that you might not be aware of is that, of course, the banks own some interest in this, right?
Yes, they do. Yes.
And on the secondary market, this debt's apparently trading at like 60 cents on the dollar.
On the dollar? Yeah, I saw that.
Which you can kind of extrapolate out to giving Twitter a value based on kind of book values that were there before of about $8 to $12 billion. This is something he bought for $44 billion 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Now he overpaid 2 weeks ago, but this is crazy. Like, there may be $30 billion less value than he purchased after 2 weeks of ownership.
Carter, the desperation is clear. That he's trying to make moves that pay the bills, that he's he's ultimately admitted we're going to do a bunch of shit. A lot of it's not going to work. I don't think he saw any of these things through to have any data points. It seems manic at this point rather than, that experiment, we gave it a 90 or 100 day sort of runway and it didn't work. what are you kind of thinking of right now, and as you see Twitter in its glory, in its peak form, just before what seems like its imminent death?
Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you guys think, like Corey said, that Elon Musk came up with the idea that there was going to be an official tag, official, the official blue check
Accounts,
marks?
the
Well,
legacy
we,
blues.
we don't know.
or-
Well, he's the one who killed it, so it could be
Right,
quite
but
possible.
here's
that
what
it was just-
here's my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that was done by someone who was high enough up in the organization to know the utter chaos that he was going to be bestowing around the organization itself if he continued with his course of action. The idea that BBC breaking news could be owned literally by anybody. Chiquita Bananas could declare apologize for coups.
Or for example, like if someone was like, oh my god, like Flair Airlines is tweeting about the Strategists with their official blue badge. If that were to happen,
if that
online,
were to happen,
if someone were to do that, that would be terrible. There would be a short, small window where someone could do that and spend $8 to tweet their favorite podcast on behalf of their least favorite airline. But I mean, it's crazy that could happen.
I am not committing Corey to buying that person.
No, I am not doing it. $20.
No one should do it.
Patreon level.
Even though they can do it.
I think someone would wind up with that Patreon level because that's the kind of guy that Corey is, right? Corey rewards those who do great things. Anyways, I think that was someone trying to stop him from hurtling himself off the edge.
What the fuck? Yeah.
He immediately said, no, I want to hurt myself off the edge. And now he's coming back to them and saying, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And the person who probably suggested it is probably one of the 3 or 4 people who walked out the door today. But he listening to good people who are around him. There are a lot that were there. There are fewer now, and there'll be none soon. But he has to start listening.
You know what's funny about this, Corey? If Elon Musk didn't buy, everything, if Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter, okay, and he was still a power user as he was prior to purchasing Twitter, and some numbskull CEO / new owner of the company instituted this policy, Elon Musk would be the first fucking person to jump on this. And so in some ways he is reaping what he sowed. But this is the troll-like, behavior that he has modeled online that is now coming back to him in manyfold. I think this guy fundamentally didn't understand the product he bought, but with the moves he made, the irony is that it's what he probably would do and the behavior he has historically modeled on the platform that is now making this even more, I shouldn't say delicious, but momentarily delicious.
No, listen. Let's talk about your point, and let's not just dance on Elon Musk's very stupid grave, which, I do a lot of right now.
Okay.
He didn't understand the product he bought. And this is one of the hazards of social media more broadly that I think politicians and political observers should keep in mind too, which is your bubble is your bubble. It is not necessarily reflective of the environment overall. The things people want to happen isn't necessarily reflective overall, including, in this case, the advertisers and a whole other part of the United States. Elon Musk, I think, really did believe, based on the reply guys in his feed egging him on, that all he needed to do was make Twitter this free speech champion and just let, I don't know, some sort of weird version of the free speech market figure it out. And how quickly he has gone from comedy is now legal on Twitter to you can't trick people. Your account has to say parody in the title if it's a parody account, right? He is just, it's not like it's not even glancing. He's rapidly contradicting things he said 2 weeks ago, right? I want to read you this. This is from the New York Times. This is just a little bit of text just to tell you again, I want to stress he bought this place 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago today as we record, right? At the meeting on Thursday, Mr. Musk warned employees, by the way, this was his first meeting with Twitter staff.
Yeah.
At the meeting on Thursday, Mr. Musk warned employees that Twitter did not have the necessary cash to survive, said 7 people familiar with the meeting who spoke on the condition of anonymity. The social media company was running a negative cash flow of several $billions, Mr. Musk added, without specifying if that was an annual figure. He mentioned bankruptcy. Mr. Musk added that he had recently sold Tesla stock to, quote, save Twitter. He has sold nearly $4 billion in Tesla shares recently, according to regulatory filings this week.
Yeah, fucking crazy.
How quickly has this thing gone to they actually seem in imminent peril?
Yeah, there's Carter, there's a business strategy here, there's a communication strategy here. We've talked about how this will become an endless case study year over year. There should be a live action, live wire, day-to-day case study if you're in a B school right now. But Carter, there's also leadership lessons here. Can we talk about those a bit? How he's conducted himself, his leadership style, because leadership, we talk about it in politics quite often, and we kind of say some have the magic touch, others do not. Some are born leaders, others are not. What sort of leadership strategy, counsel, or lessons are you seeing? To Corey's point, maybe not necessarily dancing on Elon Musk's grave, but that he has highlighted, underlined, spotlighted with his behavior, either positive or negative in some way.
Yeah, I think that I'm noticing is he's coming in as the expert, right? And I think that anybody who's been a consultant, we're hired to come in as experts. We have that we have to do is actually prove our skills and our capacity to the insiders, right? You can't just step in and say, I've got all your solutions, here they are. It just blows up in your face. And half the time, the insiders are saying, we've been railing for these types of changes and management wouldn't listen to us. And,
right.
Your job as a consultant is often just to listen to what the employees have been saying, shave off some rough edges and make some recommendations. This guy walked in, knew all the answers. I mean, he's basically a walking advertisement for the Dunning-Kruger effect. Because he knows everything about these subjects, he must know everything about the about Twitter. And the problem is that he doesn't. He may be a brilliant engineer. The jury's still out, but he sure is not a brilliant marketer for social media.
Yeah. It's one of these things. Most new bosses at a company do a bit of a listening tour, right? They're going to go around, they're going to try to take stock of things. They're going to pull old documentation forward, try to assess what's been done in the past, and if there were, because you don't want to reintroduce ideas that have been tried before. And if you are, you want to understand that it was an execution problem, not a concept problem all the way along here. And Carter, we've talked about this before, but I've often split kind of a seasoned consultant from a very junior consultant on one thing that junior consultants do. And it's something Elon Musk is doing right now, which is when you're new to a file, you come in and you say, what a bunch of idiots, what a bunch of clowns.
Yeah.
Why are they making these stupid ass decisions? I'm going to make different decisions. Whereas a more seasoned consultant who, by their seasoned, they've been around for a while, they've survived in the industry. They'll say, well, hold on. Why did they make these decisions? What led them to these particular conclusions? Why are they making these choices at this current moment? And what does that tell me about the situation I find myself in? Which does not mean things are unchanging, but it means that there are inputs that need to be considered and a situation that needs to be navigated. And so one of the things I'm struck by right now is that when we think about Elon Musk's successes, and there are people who will argue how much he had to do with Tesla, how much he had to do with PayPal, all of that crap. I actually kind of assess that he had a lot to do with them, for what it's worth. The thing I would say is the significant difference in this case is he either built or was instrumental in building or was in on the ground floor on PayPal, on Tesla, on SpaceX. The culture was his culture. The people were his people who believed in him. The significant difference in this particular moment is he did not build Twitter. He came into a fully functioning organization that existed as a whole, that had a culture, that had a way of doing things, that had a history. and he ignored the history, and he ignored the way of doing things, and he ignored the culture, and he's just tried to impose his view based on his timeline on this very big, complex organization, global in scope, with all sorts of very complex relationships with governments, with industry, with partners. And ultimately, this is the Dunning-Kruger effect. He has rapidly exceeded the limits of his knowledge, and I have no sympathy. What shocks me is just how quickly this is all happening. How when he had his first missteps and the market bit back at him, that he didn't say, "Oops, I fucked up. I've got to go a little bit slower here. I've got to figure out what the hell I'm doing." He doubled down. He tripled down. The comment in this same article, the New York Times reporting, is just wild on this, right? You read it and it just sort of boggles the mind. Like, this is a real thing. But he's basically asked by reporters, or sorry, he's by his company, "Hey, what are we doing here?" is the question. He's like, "Oh, we just all need to be more hardcore," is his answer. So, like, what the fuck does that mean? Remaining workers need to be more, quote, hardcore. What does that mean? He doesn't know what that means.
That's literally what you told us before we got on this podcast. That's why I opened with the massage.
Carter, you've never been hardcore in your life. You wouldn't know it. You're not from the Northeast.
He's a softcore kind of guy.
Yeah, he's softcore kind of guy. He's not hardcore like Corey, myself.
Hardcore. Yeah, that's what they always called me. Yeah.
Justin Haver, the three of us. I mean, those are Lenti Wong. I mean, these are the hardcore. Corey, let me quote to my favorite movie, Dave. Of course, you remember the scene in Dave where they figured out through the algorithm that Stanley Tucci leaves for Zachary Quinto. And they realize that, of course, shit has hit the fan. And he says, "Do you know why I'm in this chair at all?
Oh,
I mean, why earn the big bucks?
Such a power move, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for one reason alone. I'm here to guess what the music might do a week, a month, a year from now.
And all I hear right now is silence."
I love when Dave said that, Carter. It's one of my favorite scenes in Dave.
Oh, such a power move, by the way, of like very accomplished, very smart people to be like, I'm not the smart one here,
Well, no, let's actually dig into that. And you my guys might be thinking I'm extending this for no reason.
Yeah,
there
you're
is
making
something
us hurt. Good.
There is something to be said about leadership and leadership strategy as it relates to be able to ask the right questions versus always have the right answers. How many times have we seen that? It goes to your point of seasoned, Corey, right? You say seasoned consultant, I say seasoned executive, seasoned board member. Sure. I've seen many times that sometimes it's those that are most insecure in their abilities or their worldview or their capacity or skill are the ones that are dictating solutions rather than trying to fully understand the scenario problems. Or the problem. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think it is a broader lesson about leadership. What's fascinating to me in this context is that, I mean, he's kind of in the Steve Jobs mold of like, he's got this clarity of vision. He knows where he wants to go, right? But lest we forget, Steve Jobs' career wasn't an unbridled success either. He was ousted from his own company at a certain point in the 80s, right? And had to learn a little humility there too. I do wonder if we don't see Elon Musk running a version of this where he's going to have a hard lesson at this point, an expensive lesson. But yeah, like if you're truly a leader, if you're truly somebody who can elevate the people around you and be elevated by the people around you, you want to listen to them, not just be dictating to them, because you will be as smart as you in that situation. And what you want to do, especially with a big organization, is be as smart as many people. But to do that, you need to listen to people. That's why you hire experts. You don't want to rate limit your entire organization by your intelligence or your capacity. And what Elon Musk is doing right now is rate limiting Twitter, an organization that was 7,500 people, now 3,700 people, but in reality, one person who is making decisions. And those decisions, they are going to live or die on. And right now, they are dying on them.
Carter, speaking of rate limiting, you want to listen to the people around you. You want to, after having your ass handed to you in the U.S. midterms, probably not go to Mar-a-Lago the following Tuesday for a 9 p.m. Eastern announcement about your future. You probably want to listen, don't you, Carter, if you're one Donald Trump? But he's not going to.
No, he knows the reason why the Republicans lost. The reason why the Republicans lost, and they didn't lose. Just for the record, it looks like they're still going to have control over the House, but not nearly the control that they were looking at. I mean, I've looked at the numbers now, and it could be as small as a 1 or 2 seat majority. It could be as large as 10, but I think it leans more towards a smaller in the House, smaller lead. And then the bigger, perhaps upset was the gap between, the statewide office, the big endorsements by Donald Trump at the statewide level. Those victories were few and far between, and were basically had to be set in stone. And Ron DeSantis, certainly everybody in the pundit world was picking him up and carrying him around as the new Trump, the new crazy talker to the Republicans. And there weren't a lot of arguments coming from anywhere, except even Mar-a-Lago. We didn't hear a significant pushback from the Donald Trump people.
Well, we have today in writing. And Corey, we were talking about in the past, is it important that politicians know how to write? After reading that statement from Donald Trump, I'm going to say the answer is yes, because it is terrible. It is just random capitalizations of random things. I won't get into that. I want to actually talk about the midterms in this frame. And I want to see if you guys have any thoughts on this. Corey, I want to talk about the midterms, less about the results, because there's so much commentary about the results. What happened? Why did Oz lose? Why did Vance win? Is DeSantis actually special? Lots of hand-wringing. We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about how narratives congeal and form leading up to the midterms, and whether we should be trusting those narratives or not. Because what I found most interesting was a couple of things happening. Number one, a lot of commentary that said the red wave was coming, right? A lot of commentary that said this is going to be disastrous for the Democrats, combined with that their current message on abortion and democracy is not working, that they should have been sticking to economy, that it's not going to motivate their base. It's not going to motivate the ring around their base, the folks that they need to show up. And then we're starting to learn that a lot of the late-breaking polls that started to craft this red wave narrative were Republican-sponsored. They were partisan polls in that sense. So talk to me about, in your mind, some of the things that our listeners should understand around narratives forming, because despite the media being what it is, pretty powerful, the narrative that is kind of ultimately formed or was formed in this midterm election, and not necessarily bearing out in that sense.
You can kind of think of these midterm narratives or just election narratives in general to be a combination of like waves stacked on top of each other, or eliminating or reducing, right? And there's kind of the big overarching oscillation that happens, which is the party that wins the general tends to do worse in the midterm. And there's a lot of data of that, where, the president's party loses in the midterm. It's kind of an American historical thing. All right. Just happens. So that's one narrative that's feeding into the narrative as we found it. The other, of course, is polling, and what do people think is going to happen, and how does that set expectations overall relative to what you would expect in a midterm election. So what we were seeing here was that there was a wave coming. And that wave seemed to be overwhelming general dissatisfaction by Americans on issues like access to abortion, obviously with the Dobbs decision. Basically, everything the Supreme Court has done has been deeply unpopular, right? And so a lot of pundits were looking at it and saying, boy, like the Democrats are, I'm looking at this one wave, which is that they're supposed to lose the midterm, but that should have been canceled out by the wave that is super unpopular Supreme Court decisions. Things should have been neutral. But look at this polling. This polling is negative for them. They're in a bad spot right here, right? This is not looking good for them. And so when it looks like they are underperforming in the polls relative to what the narrative seems to suggest, at least as it sits, then that almost becomes a narrative in its own right. Let's call this the third wave, right? And then, of course, you have the analysis that comes at and after the election, which is what we're now in here, where the result ended up being neutral. So one of the things I find kind of funny is if you just remove one of those things, if you just remove polling and say this is a polling miss, this kind of makes sense, right? Like Dobbs was
Hmm.
unpopular, but the midterms have a general trend to them, and it kind of was a wash. It was not too bad for the Democrats, pretty neutral. And I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that one of their parties has basically disavowed democracy at this point, right? So, in a funny way, I think it's weird that we think the Democrats did so well when a party that is denying the last election still looks poised to win the House, could win the Senate. I mean, even if they don't, that's a lot of people who are now elected who have these views. But then there's this other story which Carter was getting into, which is about Trump and his effect on all this and his candidates. And so it all gives us much to talk about. But at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to end up in a worse position than they were in all likelihood. And Democrats are cheering, which to me is kind of funny.
Let's. I'm gonna come back to that. Carter, talk to me about narrative. Talk to me about narrative, trying to craft narrative, trying to set narrative, because perhaps from your practitioner's eye and your practitioner's ear, the Republicans may have internally known that this was not going to be a red wave, but man, oh man, did they engineer that narrative masterfully heading into it to try to maybe will it into
That's
existence.
not masterful. Oh, well,
Okay, well, it's a question. It's an open-ended question. I ask it as an open-ended question for you to respond to.
Well, I don't think that they knew that they weren't going to have the red wave. I think that they thought they were going to have the red wave. The dominant narrative, and Corey went through a few of them, but I think the dominant narrative on all of this was that president's parties always do poorly, especially when the president's in the 40% approval rate.
Yeah.
And, the only time in the last 40 years or so that didn't occur was 2002, right after September 11th, when George Bush had a 70+ approval rating and was able to win seats in that's the only time. So when you craft a narrative, when the media is crafting this narrative, and let's be clear, I think that this is mostly a media narrative that is embraced by the Republicans and fought by the Democrats. That narrative is not wrong. So, so often that it's very easy to see why grab that narrative. The narrative makes sense on its face. Every time this happens, every time a president is where Biden is, people lose. The are poised to lose, and the polls showed that starting in September. And I think that Corey pointed that out a couple of our podcasts along the way, that starting we started to see a return to the norm. And the question was, did Dobbs happen too early in the summer? And did people move away from that issue and towards the other issue of the economy? And let me answer the question. Yes, they did. They did both of those things. In areas like Florida, where they put abortion on the side because they were able to pass a 15-week abortion ban, which most Americans feel is adequate. There's not a huge uproar about to get to 20 weeks or it's the end of the world. 15-week abortion ban seemed acceptable to most Americans, or certainly to most Floridians. That was taken off the table. Huge red wave, right? In Pennsylvania, they didn't have abortion on the issue on the agenda. They instead had an election denier on the agenda. Will you elect Doug Mastriano? Is that his name? Let's go with that.
Yep.
Will you elect Doug Mastriano, who does not believe, and they didn't want that. In other places where they literally put abortion on the agenda, California and a few other places where they ran the plebiscite or the referendum questions, in those areas they stopped the red wave. So in a state like Florida, where they had to tell the story that these people were election deniers and they didn't support abortion rights, the red wave was real and the Democrats lost. In the places where they showed the story, where they had real clear evidence that this person was an election denier and it was clear, or that abortion was literally on the ballot, they did much better. And the reason I think they missed this is an over-reliance on national polling. National poll takes 1,200 to 1,500 people, and the outcome of the elections. For the most part, it works very well when it's a national style of an election. When it is a state by state election, it works far worse.
Corey, we talked about the regionalization last time. We talked about it through the lens of Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams, national figures trying to run and win viability regionally. I think this election once again kind of proved that America's, whether you say 2 countries or 4 countries, this is a regional, we're entering this regionalization phase. Carter mentions it here. What do you think the lesson is to learn on media narrative here, to learn on endgame narrative as we saw in play out in these midterms?
The lesson's the same lesson for any election observation, right? Which is you've got to get down to the base facts. You've got to say what's in front of you. One of the ironies we haven't touched on is what? It's Thursday. Even Carter was like, I don't believe in fairy tales. Red wave's coming, gonna be huge. There's some other guy on the
Never said
podcast.
that.
I don't
Never.
I
remember
think that
his
was from a
name.
while ago. Was it Jeb Bush?
No, this
Was it
doesn't-
Jeb Bush that he thought
I don't
was going to?
remember the other guy's name, but the other guy said, I don't know, some countervailing. I guess maybe there won't be as big of a red wave. My pessimistic gut says there will be, but my head says there won't. I don't know.
Was this the same
Some
guy that
guy.
thought Bernie Sanders could give Hillary Clinton a run for her money? I wonder if it's the
Yeah,
same
He
guy.
It's
did.
the same
I think
guy.
he did.
Yeah.
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 By the way,
this-
your Make Jeb Bush president again hats are available at strategist.ca. Corey,
That's
please
true.
go ahead.
They are.
Yeah.
Like this is something that it's kind of easy in hindsight to point these things out, but what you've got to try to do is sit there and say what's spin and what's not. And yeah, there were a lot of polls, the late breaking polls, that showed the Republicans doing particularly well. Like the guy who runs Real Clear Politics basically bet his reputation that the Republicans would go and just overwhelmingly win the Senate. Not even win the Senate, like it wouldn't even be
Just
close.
like fuck shit up. Yeah.
Yeah. And that obviously has not happened. Like at this point, even if the Republicans win everything outstanding, they didn't dominate, right?
Yeah,
Like there's no
yeah.
domination that occurred here. So to the point that Carter started on, like I think the Republicans legitimately believed this thing that there was going to be a red wave, and they convinced the simpler minded that was for sure going to be a thing.
Hurt right there.
Carter, what
That
would you
really-
do? What would tell me about this? What
Oh.
would you do if you were the Democrats right now? Because there's a bit of parading around, but Corey's still right. Like they're taking this as a moral victory because we didn't do as
Expectations.
yeah, this is just
Yeah.
straight expectations, like Biden giving a lengthy press conference, Kamala being like, "You did it, Joe." Like, fuck, whatever. It's like just like she seriously did that. She did that. She said that at a podium. I'm not just trashing her for no reason. She did say that. She brought the line back, Carter. What would you do if you're the Democrats? Are they right in this case from a political strategy level to talk about expectations, how they crushed it, let Biden add wind to his sails for 2024, move on, written story? Or would you be doing something else? Would you be advising him to do something else at this moment in time? And by the way, as we record, we don't even know if we're going to need the runoff in Georgia to decide the Senate. Nevada's still undecided as far as I recall in the most recent results. But Carter, what would you be doing if you're the Democrats?
You got a victory lap.
You have to, hey? So what they're doing is right in your mind.
Yeah, when people feel like you're dead and you're not dead, when they're talking about 20 seat swing and instead it comes your way. I mean, sure, you've lost the Senate or you've lost the House, but you've lost the House by such a small margin. And now Kevin, or what's his name? The new Speaker of the House, Corey.
Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, I was right. I was going in the right direction there. Kevin McCarthy.
Don't doubt yourself, Carter. You're a white man. You're a middle-aged white man.
I know.
Never doubt yourself.
Never. I'm
never,
embarrassed,
my friend.
I'm embarrassed for my pigment at this point. But the point, he's going to have to. How does he keep everybody in line for everything? Right?
He doesn't. It's going to be a fucking shit show.
He's really in trouble. Like there's still going to be. Corey talked about this. Universal understanding that the Republicans don't universally stand that the election was stolen. The ones who get the headlines stand that way, and it is a much larger group than I am comfortable with. But it is not 100% of the Republicans, and I think it's going to be fascinating watching Kevin McCarthy try to hold on to this group and keep them all together. in a way that we watched Nancy Pelosi struggle when it was only a 6-seat majority for the Democrats, and the Democrats quasi held the Senate and quasi, had the president's chair. I mean, one argues is Biden even sitting there, right?
Corey, talk to me about
Democrat
strategy right now. What would you suggest? Is the victory lap correct, as Carter suggests?
Yeah, well, it is an expectations game, right? And the Republicans set expectations high for themselves. That was a tactical mistake. It was a strategic mistake. It was a mistake just across the board. And now they've given the Democrats the ability to declare victory while losing the House. You did it, Joe, is a very funny thing to me. What the fuck did he do? Right? And look, I'm going to quibble a bit with Carter. There's reporting in the Washington Post. It's not everybody who won, but a majority of GOP nominees deny or question the 2020 election results. A majority. And yet this is a party that is in likelihood going to be in control of the House, has almost got control of the Senate. Very sizable showings across the country here. So let's not declare victory, you, me, and Steven. But if you're Joe Biden, declare victory. Declare victory. Say, look, we've kept the wolves at bay. We're back, baby. We got a spring in our step. There's no election to suggest otherwise besides Georgia's runoff in the next bit. And that's great. That's how you rebuild the momentum and you try to make it true. Where the Republicans ran into trouble is they tried to, if they were doing what you suggested, which is just trying to spin the idea that they were winning to try to make it real, doing that the month before an election is dumb, right? Because it's like, it's happening. It's real. People are making their decisions based on the inputs on the ground and around them. If you want to try to control the narrative like that in such a big way, you don't do it during an election. You do it before an election. And this is Joe Biden's before an election. Now, he can use the next year at least to try to talk about how he's back. That said, the other thing that they have to be mindful of is that their narrative is going to play into the Republican narrative, and maybe to the better for their country, maybe to the better for them. I'm not actually sure how it all splits out, but one of the really interesting things around this expectation game has been the Republicans feel like they deeply underperformed despite getting the House. So we're talking about the Democrats' view. I think the Republican view is more interesting because you've now got a civil war between DeSantis and Trump. What is going to happen there? What is it going to mean for the GOP?
Carter, if you're Team DeSantis right now, or DeSanctimonious as he's called by Donald Trump, not one of his better nicknames.
No, Lori, my wife was saying that. She said he used to be so good at this nickname stuff. He'd come up with one about Marco Rubio. He'd come up with one
Little
about
Marco.
Little Marco, right?
Little Marco, man. Classic Little Marco.
Staying power.
Low energy Jeb.
Low energy Jeb Bush is exactly where I was going next.
Crooked
right?
Hillary.
And they stuck, right?
So good.
Sleepy Joe Biden.
Sleepy
they
Joe.
Stuck.
He also had sleepy eyes Chuck Todd, which I thought was a really it's not sleep. It's not like he's actually sleepy. His eyes are sleepy.
Yeah.
It's like sleepy eyes Ryan Reynolds or sleepy eyes. Yeah, they've all the Ryans, the Goslings, the Reynolds, all got sleepy eyes. Trump and I need to drop a collab. We need to go more hardcore. Drop a collab. Carter, DeSantis. Did you get that? It was a callback.
Corey. I did.
Yeah, no,
I love a good callback. I love a good callback.
Yeah. Trump and I working from home. Good callback. Carter, DeSantis.
Yeah.
His victory might be overrated in the sense that it was not necessarily as unique as it's made out to be, but he did stitch an interesting coalition together. You mentioned it yourself about the red wave in Florida regionally. What does he have to do next in your mind in order to capture this momentum?
He's got to tell everybody he's the only winner in the Republican Party. Everybody else was a loser.
Let's go further. What would you? It's Thursday, 2 days after the election. What would you tactically suggest he do? If that's the case, let's go for it.
I'd have, visit as many winning candidates as possible. Make himself look like the leader of the party.
Outside of Florida, of course. Outside of Florida,
go outside of Florida and start, meeting with, see Governor Abbott and go and see, pulling together the grand coalition of Republican governors again, which used to be a really powerful organization but kind of stopped being powerful in the face of, celebrity politics, and politicking, that they were afraid that their buddy would fuck them when they became the nominee, or didn't become the nominee, as the case may be. But this is a great opportunity for DeSantis to show that he was the real winner, and he's got the real power. He's got everybody's listening to him. Another one of those stupid stunts of flying the refugees to Maine or wherever the hell that's fantastic. Let's go. Do it again. Show the world why you won. And remind everybody that the reason you're winning is because you can do shit, and all Donald ever did was talk shit. And I think that if you were to do that type of stuff, he'd be cooking with fire.
Corey, what does the DeSantis need to do? Is it Carter's strategy here, doing the offline version of a Coursera course, going to every state, teaching them how he did it, how he's done it in Florida, and how you can do it too, with a couple of easy payments of $19.95?
Yeah, maybe, because my first instinct, if it was anybody besides Donald Trump, would be you give him enough rope and he's going to hang himself. But that clearly has not worked in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
He just, for whatever reason, he's absolutely proven immune to these things in the past. So, yeah, I think you do need to go on a bit of an offensive here. Somebody at a certain point has to say this guy is weak and I'm going to assert myself. And that's been the challenge with Donald Trump all along, is that people talk about we've all got to stand up to him together. We got to be a coalition against Donald Trump. We heard that before the 2016 election, right? We've heard that even from Republicans who have left, like Schmidt, to create the Lincoln Project and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been a coalition-based approach. I think the only thing that takes down Donald Trump, the strongman, at this point, is another strongman. It's somebody who can come in and just prove themselves to be more effective at that domineering thing than Donald Trump is now. Is this good for America? Absolutely not. But it does seem like DeSantis is going to need to step up and just sort of declare that he's the new big dog if he wants this done.
And instead of allowing him to Trump to make a mistake, you don't actually care if Trump makes a mistake. What you're just trying to do is put him in the corner like you're the big dog, and just piss on him. And then and I'm told he likes that, so it works out.
That's a callback too. That's great.
Yeah, that was a callback. That was good.
That was wow. We're gonna have to.
This is gonna get an E rating, isn't it?
Check the tape.
This one's gonna be E rated.
Yeah. Speaking of the Russians having leverage on you, Carter, talk to me about this. If you are Donald Trump right now, I could stick on this forever, but I'm not going to. This is my final sort of question on. If you are Donald Trump right now, you've clearly shown that you've got no restraint, you've got no ability to kind of stop yourself. How would you, if you were trying to talk sense into him about the movement and Trumpism and what he's built, how would you persuade him about his launch, what we suspect is a launch on Tuesday? Well, we'll end this part of the conversation there, but give me your thoughts on that strategy-wise.
You've got to launch on Tuesday. It's got to be bigger than anything else you've ever done. You've got to make sure you're hitting DeSantis with something harder than De Sanctimonious. You've got to be being Trump. And your best case scenario is that they lock you in chains the day before, right? Or the day after. Because, from out from underneath the attacks of the Justice Department might just be the only thing that gives you the strength that, that people expect you to see. I mean, if done in by, civil trial, that's not going to project any strength, and you need to project strength. And that this is Tuesday's the most important day in Donald Trump's life, if he's going to have a political direction.
You'd still tell him to go on Tuesday?
Oh, if he doesn't, he looks weak. I mean, weak. And whole shtick is being the strong guy.
Corey,
if he doesn't go.
Does he have to go on Tuesday, Corey?
Yeah, I think he does. for exactly the reason that Steven said. How do you not go if you're Donald Trump at this point? How do you pull it off? The only thing you can do is modify. Like if you wanted to all of a sudden go for the jugular, and I don't know where DeSantis is from. Where the hell is DeSantis from? Doesn't matter.
Florida.
Maybe Jacksonville. Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
where he was born. I don't know where he's from. Um, go into DeSantis's hometown. Say you're going to do your rally there. You're going to take it right to him. Maybe you up the aggression, but you simply cannot back down
Kill
at
him.
this point. If your entire brand is being the pugilist who's going to fight and tell it like it is. Well, I mean, we all know he's full of shit, but he likes to have a brand of telling it like it is.
We're gonna leave the American topic there, but Carter, in the segment of red splash blue check, can I talk about a bit of a blue splash? Is that fine
Oh.
if I end us off there as a bit of a teaser? The blue
You
splash
are-
made
yeah.
in Brooks Medicine Hat by Danielle Smith. She
Oh,
wins
nice.
her by-election. She gets just above 50%. The NDP come in second. Barry Marshita, leader of the Alberta Party, comes in third. I want to do a deeper sort of analysis set, so to speak. But Carter, one of the narrative questions that I find interesting that's coming out of this that I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on today before we jump into this on Sunday: does margin matter? Does the margin objectively matter? Did it matter that Danielle Smith just barely got above 50%? Or like the NDP are saying, she lost Medicine Hat in the area of Medicine Hat in that particular riding. What do you kind of make of that? And we'll kind of use this as a jumping off point to our conversation on Sunday. But your top line thoughts on Danielle Smith and her victory in the by-election earlier this week.
I was looking at 50%. If she'd come in under 50%, I think that would have been really quite devastating. She's not. But 54.5 isn't exactly some sort of staggering victory either. So she didn't horrible performance for her. But it wasn't as strong as it should have been or could have been. Let's leave it kind of like that. I would say that her losing Medicine Hat outright was a really bad day for. That is something that is a much larger signal. Medicine Hat is not the second most liberal small city in Alberta. I mean, obviously, the most progressive is. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I think that the most progressive is Lethbridge. But this really does say that, the seats that Lethbridge, the seats in Medicine Hat, or the seat that's really urban in Medicine Hat is at risk. And that would have been hard to imagine not that long ago, right? Danielle Smith is supposed to be coming in, and that's supposed to be her base, her strength. And it's just nowhere near as strong as it should be.
Corey, use it as a jumping off point. Also, give me your thoughts on margin of victory. And to Carter's point here, does the Medicine Hat conversation, sure, it might be a big piece. Does it have longevity? Is it worth mentioning beyond the news cycle to draw a point about her relative weakness in your mind? Talk to me about both of those things.
Yeah. So I've been thinking a bit about the Medicine Hat election, and I've come to a couple of conclusions here. Let me give you some top line analysis right off the bat. So this riding, Brooks Medicine Hat, has only existed since the 2019 election. But if you were to take the 2015 results and transpose over them, like say what would the results have been if you took the Wild Rose vote, the UCP vote, or sorry, the Wild Rose vote, the PC vote, the NDP vote, what you'd see is that in 2015, during what we'll call that orange wave, the NDP got about 23% of the vote in that area, right? And then this by-election, they got 27%. So a little bit up from there, but it's a by-election. So I'm actually going to call it, their vote was basically consistent with their high watermark. Not bad for the NDP, though, because, of course, in 2015, they won the election. Like that does appear to be, if you want to extrapolate out, that does appear to be enough to win the election. But there's something else I want to point out here. The Wild Rose UC or PC vote combined in that election was 72%. In 2019, the UCP plus the independent, who was a former UCP candidate who was turfed, was 73%. So consistently, the right in that riding has gotten 72, 73%. Danielle Smith only got 55%. So I think the combination of the NDP hitting what is their 20 watermark and Smith being low, like really low, that is a disaster for the UCP. That's a potential wipeout disaster for the UCP. But there's something in Brooks' medicine hat that's not going to exist everywhere else.
Which
That's
is
a strong Alberta Party candidate, right? And as much as we make fun of the Alberta Party here, Barry
Yes, we do.
Morishita is there, and he got what 17% of the vote. If I
Yeah.
look at this here, 16.5. That seems to me almost like very strong evidence that his vote is not coming from the NDP side of things, it's coming from the UCP side. And that I cannot believe I'm saying, but I think the best thing for the NDP in this election would be if the Alberta Party could get their boots on, because it's clear to me that there's a number of right-wing voters who are looking for anywhere.
We'll use that as a jumping off point as we discuss this more on Sunday. We'll leave that segment there, following it to our next segment. Stephen Carter, our over under our lightning round. Carter, we do
Yes.
this all for you, the entire episode, even if we're recording close to midnight. It's 11 o'clock almost.
It's
on
really
a
past my
Thursday.
bedtime.
It is past your bedtime. Well, you know what? What would make bedtime better for you could be some dollars underneath that pillow, Stephen Carter, because the UCP are planning to flood Danielle dollars to Albertans, as according to a new Calgary Herald article, to help ease it with inflation, but of course with an election to follow. Are you in or out, Stephen Carter, on the Danielle dollar strategy that might be headed into our mailboxes sometime in the new year?
Let's see. Flooding Alberta with more money to fight inflation. Am I in or out? I'm out, Zane. I'm out. And this is the second time Danielle Smith has floated this. She floated this also in the 20. She was leader of the Wild Rose Party at that time. We called them Danny Dollars. So Danny Dollars, I think we'll have to return to. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to take money and just flood the like this without some sort of reason or rationale behind it beyond just giving people cash. I know that most people will like it, but it will do nothing to address the core issue, which is inflationary pressure. So it's if anything, it's only going to make things worse. I don't think it's going to destroy anything, but it's certainly not going to bring us out of our malaise. In fact, I'm not even sure that we're in an inflationary malaise, except for Corey's new mortgage payment, which I'm remarkably not caring very much about at all.
Carter, Corey, before I come to you on this, with your raw Machiavellian political strategy hat on, are you still out?
I don't think that this is the way that gets you the best return on your, if you'll forgive me the phrase, return on bang for your buck. There's a lot of money that goes out the door to a lot of people that will make absolutely no difference to. They all of a sudden will have an extra 150, 400 bucks, whatever the number is. And it's very fleeting and forgotten. You're going to go, oh, yeah, Danielle gave me that money that saved my ass. How well do we remember Justin Trudeau and the money that flooded out of the federal government? We are fleeting. We're asking, that was nice, but what do we get now? And Danielle will find herself in the same spot when things progress, much to her chagrin, I'm sure.
Corey, are you in or out? Let's just ask the question through the raw political strategy lens. Are you in or out on potential Danielle dollars hitting mailboxes sometime in the new year in cold, hard Canadian non-Bitcoin cash?
I think they'll be popular, right? I do. I suspect that giving money to people and saying it's because of a windfall, because Alberta's back, because I'm standing up to Ottawa, is a package that'll work for an awful lot of people. And you're going to have the NDP sitting there sputtering a bit trying to find some sort of clever line like, yeah, you've got Danielle dollars, but there's Smith's social collapse, or you're faced with UCP underfunding with these Danielle dollars, or, they're going to be looking for this tag that they can throw back at it. But at the end of the day, people like free money. What can you say? Right. And so you're probably not going to want to say much, and you're going to want to move on, and you're going to want to change the focus, but you're not going to want to dwell on the logic or not of the Danny dollars, which have no logic. Stephen's right. Like you're going to fight inflation by giving people money. Why don't you fight fire with gasoline? It doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, good strategy. But I think, a good trap for the NDP. A good trap for the NDP, because the NDP are going to want to swing at it. And I think the NDP partisans are going to want to swing at it. And that is the liability the NDP have. They're going to have people online arguing against free money. And that's going to not be popular with people. So you've got to change the channel quickly if you're the NDP. If you manage to do that, I ultimately don't think you've bought very much if you're Danielle Smith, because those dollars will be forgotten quickly. They always are. People don't give the feds a lot of credit for the GST rebate. The fact that it just doubled, does anybody give a fuck? I think actually
people don't give a lot of the feds credit for the CERB. That looks like that's a lifetime ago in some ways.
Like what I was going to say. Listen, don't get me wrong. People appreciate the money. Are they going to vote for Justin Trudeau because of it? No.
Yeah.
No. Right. And so, it's limited return as long as the NDP doesn't take the bait, and as long as NDP partisans can just keep their mouth shut and say, yeah, we all like free money, but let's talk about these other 30 things that are going wrong under the UCP.
Corey, I'm going to stick with you for our next one. Overrated, underrated, the latest iteration. Please don't take an hour. Please, Corey, don't take an hour.
It's going to be
of the crypto crash.
It's going to be at least. I'm just going to turn
crypto
off my mic
crash.
And have a little
its
snoozle.
Latest iteration, Corey. This could be Professor Hogan, or this could be Hard Corey. I don't know. So you choose. You choose which one. You choose.
Look, crypto is going down. It's hitting new depths. We're at the point now that in the last year, it's down. Bitcoin is down about 75%. So, hey, congratulations if you bought Bitcoin in November of last year. You sure lit some money on fire. You're in Elon Musk levels of return at this point. But truly, I mean, sorry about that. That sucks. A lot of people were shilling this stuff and acting as though it was the next great thing. And a lot of people wanted to not miss a bus, right? But one of the challenges is with the current iteration, it is so drama laden. Like you've got one of these big exchanges essentially sewering one of these other big exchanges, and then being like, well, we'll buy you to bail you out. No, we're not going to do that. But like it took a tweet of one guy to effectively wipe out an immense amount of value in another exchange, which has then propagated into other exchanges going down, and other, exchanges maybe even too strong for some of these. They're almost like crypto style hedge funds. And the thing is, now you have people saying things like, oh, I wish this stuff was regulated, or, oh, there should be insurance for this kind of thing. Oh, you mean like banks, like fiat currencies, like the things that you've been railing against? Put that aside for a minute. The real banks, the real money that has launched Bitcoin into the stratosphere, has made it like a $1 trillion thing at one point, right? That money's out. That money's saying this is way too volatile. That risk is much beyond what we actually even assessed, and we thought it was pretty risky. And you'll have a few people do it speculatively, but I think the days of pension funds buying into Bitcoin exchanges, they're over. They're over.
Yeah.
And they're over until something more dramatic happens on the regulatory side, which is so against the ethos that I don't see it. So, like, one of the things is people are quick to point to, oh, look at the other times crypto's been up and then crypto's been down. There are some fundamentally different things going on here. And the main one is what drove the last rise was scale. And that scale is out. That scale is not interested now, because the volatility and the unprofessionalism of the entire sector cannot be ignored.
Carter, anything to add?
Well, just there's a reason why why money evolved to be state backed, right? The reason it evolved to the situation, again, it's almost like Musk ignoring the history of why how Twitter has developed. Well, money has developed in much the same fashion. A currency didn't begin with state backing. It moved to state backing when it became beneficial to the state to do so. This will never be beneficial to the state to back any of these cryptocurrencies. It's just it doesn't make economic sense for them, and it doesn't make sense as a nation state. So don't expect that this is going to be bailed out. I mean, Corey's point about it being against the ethos also has a strong point to it, but it's against the ethos of government to bail out something that is this speculative.
Corey, final question here. By Christmas of this year, will Elon Musk still be CEO of Twitter?
Yeah, because who else would want that job? Who would take that job at this moment?
Would
right?
you take that job if you were offered it tomorrow?
God, no. Would you? Would you want to work for Elon Musk? I mean, at one point I thought maybe Jack would come back and run it.
Yeah.
And it, plausible at this point.
Carter, Elon Musk still CEO of Twitter by Christmas?
Well, on paper, I mean, what is it when you're bankrupt? Do you remain CEO?
Oh, I could say so many things. I could say so many things.
Like of the three of us here,
Yeah,
who's
Carter.
most likely to know the answer to that question, Steve?
Carter.
What are you talking about?
Carter. We're going to leave it there.
I'm gonna
That's a wrap on
read my
episode
7,000
1014 of The
page,
Strategists.
like,
My name is Zaid Belgi. With me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. We will see you next time.